So playing catch up is even more fun when we can chat with Bomani Jones, the Right Time podcast. It is a staple. It should be if you love all sports, but I know Bo's been deep into the NBA playoffs. We got stuff to do with that. I have heard you, sir, talk about Bill Belichick, and I want to start there real quick because I find myself completely unfascinated by this story, but apparently so many people are, to the point where I just read I haven't even finished it yet, a story in The Athletic tracking down, going through Jordan Hudson's roots in New England. Are you interested in this story at all?
I am interested in it, but not in a way where we're taking it seriously. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Like I do find it pretty interesting and really funny that this guy has just proven to be like every other guy, right? This woman done. When they had that picture up of him on his back with his feet in the air with her on him. You're not gonna tell me that's not great, right?
Yep.
Like I'm here for it in that regard. I think I told people I went to a Super Bowl party where he pulled up with her, and you could tell, man, he feel like she the bee's knees. But to the level of depth that I've seen a lot of people get into this, no, I don't need to know the inner workings of it, I guess is the point. What I can see with my own eyes is good enough for me. It does not make me curious about that much more.
Bomani Jones is joining us here. Part of me just wishes he would have bought a Ferrari like everybody else in that stage of life rather than go through all of this. By the way, the fisherman picture with her as a mermaid is very, very close to as good as whatever that Titanic photo they tried to do.
Well, what I do think is funny is that she is of the generation that does not know a life before Instagram.
Right.
Like she can't conceive of anything that happened prior to that. And she is very, very online. He clearly is not really online, which allows her to bring him to her very online world. Like, if we're just talking about this is the kind of stuff that historically we would talk about, call it at the ACC kickoff or the ACC tournament or something like that, right? Like, this would be our topic of conversation. At dinner. How dinner moved into this other space is just a little bit beyond me, when we haven't even gotten to the real question is, how many wins do you see on that schedule for that man and that team? Because I don't see a lot.
And that's where I go when I hear this, because all of the Bomani Jones is joining us here in the Adam Gold Show. All the people have made the assumption that because Bill is now, whether it's directly, indirectly, tangentially caught up in this world, that it will translate to football. I can't make that leap yet because I want to see it on the football field. I know you're skeptical about his overall impact, having listened to you talk about this enough. I am more, you guys are probably right who don't think it's going to work, but I'm going to let the best coach in my lifetime, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt to think that he might be able to coax more wins out of it. It's going to come down to talent. But for me, that's the only thing that matters, is how this impacts the football. And I don't know that it will or won't. I really can't. Do you have an idea of how that might work out?
No, I don't think that any of the stuff that we're talking about matters for the football.
Right.
Like, I don't think any of the stuff with Jordan Hudson has a single thing to do with football. The question is whether the reasons why his football teams were really bad for the last 2 years, does that translate over to the football teams that he have now? Does his incredibly cerebral approach to football, can you ask a college professor to teach at a high school? And that's what's happening here. Yeah. Like, there are so many truly fascinating levels to this. And if you want to get into all the leaks and everything that are around this, that this is what happens when a football program hires a coach without getting everybody on board. You wind up with like the way that all the news and leaks and everything are traveling. That's what happens when not everybody's on the same team.
Yeah, it's funny.
So those are the interesting things.
I talked to Bubba Cunningham about this after the fact. And I asked him, was Bill Belichick on your initial list? You know, he said he made a list of like 70 names on a legal pad of people that they were interested in. And I asked him, was Bill on that list? And he said yes. And I love Bubba Cunningham. I respect the hell out of him. Not for a second do I believe that it was his idea to write the name Bill Belichick on that list?
I just want to say, imagine being as accomplished and, from what I can tell, generally good at his job as Bubba Cunningham is, and you've had that program, and this is the second straight major, well, maybe not the second one, but he didn't get to hire the basketball coach when Roy left, and he didn't get to hire this football coach.
Yep. I mean, first of all, that's sort of the way this thing works now, right? Like, the bigger the program that you have, it almost seems like you have less control over who you hire.
Well, I think it's hilarious that he ever thought he was going to get to hire the basketball coach. That was poppycock. Roy was always going to hire that basketball coach.
I mean, it happened to Duke too.
Oh yeah, like come on, guys. You thought you were never more powerful than that guy, and you thought you were going to get to hire the coach. Okay, but the football coach, that seemed like the whole reason you hire him. But I also get the argument that if somebody feels like they got a line to Bill Belichick, then we're gonna go get Bill Belichick. And there's nobody that you could have proposed, that you could have sold if people knew that Belichick was an option. But once one person gets to commandeer the process, and I'm not sure it's just one, but like once a small group of people commandeer the process, no matter what the circumstances are, then the rest of them are going to be salty and haters. And they seem to be doing a lot of the leaking.
So do you think UNC football and Bill Belichick are a match at all?
It can be. The thing about Belichick that I think that people misunderstand is he's more of a human being than I think he gets credit for being. Yeah. Like if you watch that Patriots 8-part or however long that documentary was, it is very clear that he didn't start acting like he had no manners until after Spygate, right? Like he is a person who does understand how things work. And so for his own sake, I hope he understands that when he got to that press conference and said that, my first word, they said little Billy's first words were beat Duke. And I'm like, buddy, they needed to be beat State.
Right.
Like, do you understand what this job is? And if he understands what the job is, he has a chance. But what the job is a plus or minus 7.5 win program. And it looks no better than 8 wins to me.
Yeah. And that will not be a success here. In year one, I think a pass will be given, and I believe that there will be multiple years. I never for a second thought June 1 was a legitimate deadline for anything. I don't see Bill going back to the NFL. I think those bridges have either been burned or there's a barrier up with the drawbridges. I don't know. I don't see him going back to the NFL, but I think he's going to be here for multiple years. In year one, 8 wins would be awesome, because I don't think their roster is any better, might even not be as good as it was a year ago. But after that, success is knocking on a playoff door or making the playoffs. I don't think it's anything below that is a failure.
The question that I have, and I think it's going to determine the length of this tenure, is when, not if, when the day comes and people say, you brought a lot of dead weight with you, and you got to fire some of these people. And yes, I'm talking about Lombardi. Is he going to be willing to part with his people? Because he brought all these guys that none of the NFL teams wanted him to bring with him. He brought them all.
Yeah, including a bunch of people named Belichick. And who knows, maybe Jordan Hudson will one day be named Belichick. I don't know, and I don't care. But I did when that report came out. I was curious. Where were they registered? I'd love to send something, a place setting, whatever. Bomani Jones is joining us here. I want to talk about one more bad match before we get to the NBA Finals. Is there a worse personality match than Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin?
I would just make the argument that Mike Tomlin has made it work with a disparate cast of characters.
That is true.
Including his first quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, down to the wide receivers that he has dealt with. Like, he believes that he can get it out of anybody. And so I think it's less about whether Aaron Rodgers is a bad fit with Mike Tomlin than is Aaron Rodgers the right fit with the Pittsburgh Steelers, because what they are goes beyond Mike Tomlin. I mean, again, they've hired 3 coaches since 1969.
Yeah.
That is insane. Keeping in mind, by the way, they were terrible before that. Little known NFL fact. They didn't get good until that era. Like when people talk about the standard in Pittsburgh is Super Bowls, that was the standard for 6 years. Right. But we're going to see. Like, I think the thing about Aaron last year was the Jets weren't good. He wasn't great, but he wasn't bad. And you could put together a decent highlight package of him. Now, what kind of offense is Arthur Smith going to run with him? Because we know Arthur likes to run the ball, and then make the throws. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be cool with that? Can he handle that? We're going to see. But I hope he understands this, that when it doesn't go well with the Jets, we are going to be inclined to blame the Jets. That's not going to be the case here. It's going to come all down on you.
Yeah, as somebody who is no longer a Jets fan, by the way, as a quick aside, I have in many ways taken your lead by not being a Falcons fan, right?
Yes.
Why do they deserve your fandom? And for decades as a Jets fan, I decided I was fed up. And I basically leaned on, you know what? That's what Bo said. And I think he's right. So congratulations for convincing this now recovering Jets fan. But I still understand the team. You're welcome. I still understand the team, and I understand what they're about. And you could certainly say the Jets were poorly coached during the 2 years that Rodgers was there. Obviously, only one active. But I thought they had a better team in year one. I thought they actually might have been good with Rodgers in year one, but I never thought they would be good last year because they didn't have a good enough team. Now, I don't know how good Pittsburgh is. They might have been holding it together with chewing gum and baling wire.
They had two quarterbacks last year that you could talk yourself into, but ultimately weren't that good, and
right.
Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And that same profile seems to fit the modern version of Aaron Rodgers. That's where this gets interesting is the numbers don't look bad. They don't. But Aaron Rodgers playing the type of football that he plays, throwing 11 interceptions, is a lot of interceptions.
Yeah.
A lot. So I am fascinated to see what they do, but I also think for Pittsburgh, this is the best option they had.
Yeah, they've in many ways, they treated themselves like Washington did when they were kicking the can down the road with Kirk Cousins. They never planned for what was next. So when Kirk Cousins was ultimately out the door, they had nobody to turn to, which is why they went through the wilderness until Jaden Daniels. The Steelers never had another option.
But something really interesting about them, and I've never seen this talked about very much, and maybe I've just been in the wrong places and everybody brings it up. But before they made that trade to get Minka Fitzpatrick and they gave up a first-round pick, they had one first-round pick basically every year for almost 50 years. So if you're not going to bottom out and you don't trade your first-round picks, then how do you get a quarterback?
I mean, you got to get lucky or you have to be incredibly smart. I mean, look, teams have gotten lucky. The Patriots got lucky with Tom Brady in the 6th round. Look, to me, the 49ers got super lucky with the last player taken in the draft in Brock Purdy. So the Steelers either didn't scout it properly or they tried. They drafted Kenny Pickett, which was, of course, a mistake. Who's now the backup to Joe Flacco, Shedeur Sanders, and Dylan Gabriel in Cleveland. That's tough.
Yes. Let me tell you, a great axiom for the NFL. You can look this up. There's a couple of exceptions, but not really. If the quarterback is there in the 20s, wait till the 30s.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting a good quarterback in the 20s. Nobody.
Very good point. All right, I can't believe we're this far into this conversation. We haven't talked about the NBA Finals yet. Bomani Jones, the Right Time Podcast, is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. I've heard a lot of people complain about this not having the sizzle of, because there are no super teams. We have Indiana, Oklahoma City. Who cares? Is it, or do we have great players? We have seen Tyrese Halliburton single-handedly level two teams. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is not only the MVP, but he is a legit star. By the way, Basketball Canada should be pretty happy. We don't have super teams here, but we have super players.
Yeah, I think if you say something long enough, people will believe it. And I think that we have talked so much about market size enough that where people were actually talking about that before they actually talked about what the series was. A team that won something like 68 games or however many games it was that Oklahoma City had managed to win with the MVP, who put up an all-time great season by most advanced statistical metrics. And we're talking about all that other peripheral stuff. That to me is just a little bit crazy. And why do you care? Either you want to watch it or you don't. And if you're not a big basketball fan, that's fine, right? The brand name part isn't there. But when basketball fans start talking about it, it's crazy. And if you're talking to a non-basketball fan about it, why do you care, right? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander seems to be emerging as the best player in the NBA. You're not going to tell me the problem is that he plays in Oklahoma City because Kevin Durant played in Oklahoma City. Russell Westbrook played in Oklahoma City. And after Kevin Durant left, they remained the television draw of Russell Westbrook and the various co-stars that he wound up bringing with him. This has a chance to be very good basketball for us to watch. But what it is, and to be fair to everybody else, is that it is a change of the paradigm in terms of what it takes for you to win a championship. Like, it is entirely possible that Oklahoma City is going to win a championship with their second best player being Jalen Williams.
Right.
You couldn't win a championship like that before. Like this is becoming different of the level of star power of what is required for you to have to win a championship because teams can't stack stars anymore because of the way they've changed the CBA. Like this is, I believe, a transitionary period for the league, but it could also be the beginning of Oklahoma City being really good and doing this for a really long time because they're the only team that's really good, really young, with a lot of draft picks to trade.
Did super teams really work, though? I mean, Miami was a super team. That team was put together around Dwayne Wade and then added pieces with Bosh and LeBron coming and then added the pieces that helped them win. Boston won only one title, right, with that group, and maybe that isn't necessarily the best example because they probably did underachieve a little bit because they assembled that team from outside of Boston, even though Paul Pierce was there. Every other super team, basically, maybe you add a piece, but the core was in place when they won a bunch.
I feel like when we start talking about super teams that people need to be specific, and I think you identified it properly when you start talking about Boston and you talk about a team like Miami where, I mean, the Rolling Stones are not a super group. They're just the Rolling Stones, the Traveling Wilburys. They're a super group because you put all these guys together from different places, right? If you go back and look at who has won the last however many championships, let's start it with 2019. Toronto won it. Yes, they went and got Kawhi Leonard. That was an amazing one-off sort of situation, but your second best player on that team is Pascal Siakam. I don't think we'll call that a super team. The Lakers went and got Anthony Davis, but again, I don't think that counts as a super team. They traded the farm, they got him, but then go look at the rest of the roster. The second best player for Milwaukee that year was probably Chris Middleton. Mm-hmm. The Warriors team after that was a hobbled Klay Thompson and older Draymond Green. None of us would call that a super team. 2023 was the Nuggets, and Nikola Jokic has never played with an all-star. Last year was the Celtics, and you could say they added Porzingis, in Derek White, but they built that team fairly organically. I guess and keep it in mind, the Warriors pre-Kevin Durant were an organically built team where the only high lottery pick was Andrew Bogut, and that didn't count because this was 10 years after he came into the league.
Right.
I say all that to say that the idea that there was ever truly a super team era, not quite. It's kind of like tanking. Tanking, show me the example of the tanking working. You can't. It's not there, right? Like you go look at who the teams are that get this done. It doesn't go that way. So the super team was always an approach, but the difference now is nobody can afford a second really good player.
That's right.
Like we're not even talking about the super team. We're just talking about going and getting another dude, and nobody can afford to.
By the way, you know where tanking did work? In baseball. The Houston Astros tanked, and it worked. They created a great team over about, half a decade. They either won or played for World Series for a long time. And tanking worked there in the most illogical of sports where tanking might work because the draft in baseball is a total roll of the dice. That's all that is.
It's a total roll of the dice, and also it's one thing in the NBA where you get the best pick for 2 rounds. It's another thing in baseball where you get the best pick for 178 rounds, or how many rounds they've got, right? Like, in theory, the advantage that you receive should be a little bit better because this keeps going over and over and over. So, yeah, it's going to go there. But now the NBA did a great job on this tanking thing. The lottery odds aren't good enough to justify the activity, but there's clearly a lag in people recognizing that the impact of this attempt has changed, and people keep doing it. And there's no point in it anymore. You might as well go try to – how about this? Even if you don't try to be good, like I think what Oklahoma City did in building this team, you could argue it was tanking, and they certainly were not prioritizing winning at all costs. But what they were really doing was developing the young talent that they had. If you go look at that team, the only high lottery pick is Chet Holmgren.
Yeah,
they're not loaded up with all the guys that they tank to get. You see what I mean?
I do.
That was never the strategy.
I do. It's tanking, honoring the process. Man, Philly hadn't won anything, and they tried to honor the process. That is a team that actively attempted to rig the system and couldn't do it. Bomani Jones, by the way, is the Dallas Mavericks coaching job better than the Knicks coaching job?
I have watched a lot of discussion about that on television, and I see the argument. I don't know if it is necessarily better, but I do, in fact, see the argument. Because let me tell you, it's going to be some heat on the seat of whoever gets that job. The Knicks messed around and got just good enough for people to expect more.
Yeah.
And your two best players can't play with each other.
I was never...
They clearly must think that if they get Jason Kidd, that they'll get Giannis. That's the only explanation behind what they're doing.
If they can get Giannis and send Karl Anthony Towns somewhere, yes. I almost might become a Knick fan again. Shouts to our friend Shannon Penn, who I know is living through it right now. Bomani,
yes, he is.
Bomani Jones, at Bomani_Jones, the Right Time Podcast. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. I'll talk again soon.
By the way, if you want to feel old, speaking of Shannon, guess where I'm going tomorrow afternoon?
Oh, there's a graduation, I know.
There's a graduation.
Ah, man.
So I guess you got one coming in a year, so all you people are making me feel old.
I got 2 years. Jack started a little late, but I got 2 years, but it's still, yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Be good.
You got it. Bomani Jones here on the Adam Gold Show.